Let's make a start. Thanks everyone for joining this webinar today, and I'm really happy to welcome you all to what is a co-hosted webinar between CUCOS and the Energy Charter. My name's Wendy Miller and I'm a senior advisor focused on matters of energy at CUCOS, and I'm going to be your chair and host of the event today. To begin, I'd like to first acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we are each joining this event from, and to recognise that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land, and to pay my respects to elders past and present. Today I am on the Turrbal and Yagara people's lands. CUCOS is the peak for the social service sector in Queensland, and our vision is for equality, opportunity and well-being for every individual in every community. One of our key work areas is in energy, where we support building the literacy and capacity of the sector in understanding how to support people in need who are struggling with their energy bills or well-being, as well as connecting together those in the sector who support people with these needs. We do this through providing online resources, trainings and events such as today's. We also undertake a significant body of research, advice and advocacy work on household energy affordability, vulnerability, access and equity matters, and collaborate and advocate on these matters across the sector, industry, government and regulatory spaces. Now to today's webinar. A number of Energy Charter signatories have recently committed more than $1.5 million in new funding over the next 12 months to deliver and augment a range of programs across Australia, including with community organisations. And this additional funding is intended to increase support for customers experiencing vulnerable circumstances. Today, we're going to spend an hour together with Sabine, Matt and Kenny to unpack this recent announcement. So firstly, we'll hear from Sabine, who is the Executive Director of the Energy Charter, and she's going to share with us the backstory as to how the funding came about and some of the wider tapestry of work being realised under the Energy Charter that contributed to this outcome and can support further and future outcomes. We'll move then from Sabine to Kenny, where we will look at this from Energy Queensland's vantage point, one of the funding organisations. Kenny is the Manager of Customer Advocacy at Energy Queensland, and he will be providing their perspective, including unpacking some of the key data insights that mattered to them on energy vulnerability in Queensland through COVID-19. As our final speaker today, we'll turn our attention to the specific program, the Queensland Energy Support Program that has been funded as part of this package. And we'll welcome Matt, who is the Senior Manager of Energy and Financial Literacy at Uniting VT, to the stage. Matt will be sharing a practical understanding about the additional support, how it works, what type of outcomes it can achieve for those who you support, and how you can simply access it for your clients. We do have a couple of opportunities for Q&A throughout the webinar, so I would just invite you to please type in any questions that you have into the Q&A section within Zoom, and I will read those out as we go through the session. So I would now like to pass to Sabine.
Thanks very much, Wendy. Fantastic to be here, and thank you, CUCOS, for co-hosting this great event, and thanks to all of you who have joined the call. To begin, I want to acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders and the land that I'm beaming into you from today. It's the Garagal people here in Sydney, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and future. Wendy's asked me to talk about the Energy Charter and this fantastic announcement of $1.5 million for vulnerable energy customers And I'm going to just start off with a little bit of background on the Charter, not to put you to sleep, don't worry, but just hopefully to contextualise it for you. So what is the Energy Charter? The Energy Charter is if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, fantastic, a CEO-led commitment to 5 key customer principles. We have 20 energy businesses across the supply chain, and a number of those are based in Queensland, which is fantastic. Ostensibly, the purpose of the Charter is to put customers at the centre of what we do. There are 2 limbs to the Charter. The first is transparency and accountability. So once a year, the signatories go through an independent accountability panel process. Some of you may have attended over the last month or so the stakeholder forums associated with that. And in a couple of weeks, we'll get an independent accountability panel report, which will effectively provide us with guidance on where the Energy Charter signatories are doing well, and even more importantly, where they can do better for customers. The second limb of the Energy Charter is the Better Together initiatives, which, as the name suggests, are collaborative initiatives that bring people together, both industry members, stakeholders, consumer advocates, to look at pain points for customers and then work out how we can address those. And the announcement of the $1.5 million really comes from one of those Better Together initiatives. It was an initiative that kicked off, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, around, not surprisingly, COVID-19 and how could we do better for customers. So if we rewind a year and a half ago now, the Energy Charter signatories came together with a number of end user representatives to say, what can we be doing? And we decided at the very least, what we should be doing is getting more information out to customers about where they could get assistance. So we started a campaign called We've Got You, and effectively this was encouraging all customers to get in contact with their retailer if they thought that they may need support and assistance due to the fact they'd been impacted by COVID or even more broadly. In addition to that, we put out a number of resources targeted at things like energy efficiency tips. We worked with the consumer advocates to understand which were the community groups or cohorts of customers that were being most impacted. And you can see in the bottom left, there's a COVID-19 student energy efficiency tips. Those were translated across 10 different languages because we were very cognizant at the time that particularly international students were doing it very tough. The signatories then committed to 12 months of the COVID-19 customer vulnerability research, which you can see behind me. This was 4 stages of research. And again, we worked really closely with consumer advocates to make sure that we were asking the right questions. I'm not going to go into what the research found because I know Kenny's got some slides on this as they pertain to Queensland. But effectively what we were doing was getting a nationwide view with then the ability to deeper dive into different jurisdictions, including Queensland, on how customers were being impacted by COVID and what sort of supports they needed from the energy sector, not just retailers, but across the board. This led to a number of live events where we had, importantly from our perspective, CEOs standing up and talking about what the outcomes of the research were and what their businesses were both individually doing and collectively doing to support customers. Then if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, thank you. Then we had a very notable CEO council meeting. These happen once a quarter for Energy Charter signatories, where the CEO said we need to map out across the supply chain, so from retailers all the way up to generators, where our touch points are with vulnerable customers or customers in vulnerable circumstances. We need to work out who's got the roles and responsibilities. And ultimately, as you can see by the framework that was developed, we recognise that everybody had a responsibility in relation to customers in vulnerable circumstances. And this was quite a cultural leap, as I'm sure many of you will understand. For a generator or a transmission business to be acknowledging and really embracing the idea that they had a role to play to support hardship customers, this was quite a step change from a cultural perspective. The next slide, and I won't go into it in detail, it is on our website. Oh, I think something might have happened to the slide deck. The next slide, however, was really the swim lanes. What is it that a retailer could do? What is it that a transmission business could do, a network business, a generator could do? And as you can see, lots of colourful dots, which means that there is action to be undertaken. So we'll use this as Energy Charter signatories, not only for COVID times, but frankly into the future. There's really a strong commitment now across these businesses to better support customers in vulnerable circumstances. Of course, some were already doing that, but most importantly, aligning that across the supply chain so that we will now see support is aligned from a customer perspective. And then if we fast forward to September, a couple of months ago, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, we were able to make a very large announcement from our perspective across the signatories in terms of this $1.5 million of support. Now, this is across a number of jurisdictions, so it's not just Queensland. And what we encouraged the businesses to do was look at new programs, augmenting whatever they might be doing already, to support customers, particularly those impacted by COVID. And you can see there that there's a range of different initiatives that have come to light. So in Tasmania, for example, it was hardship support for business owners. There were other states that looked at augmenting existing programs, such as the CARE program in the ACT. There was work done in Western Australia around prepayment options, etc., etc. And the reason that it's not one program for everybody is because we wanted to really reinforce that there are different customers and different customer needs everywhere, and signatories needed to do the right research and engagement to work out what was the most appropriate for their particular jurisdiction. We're particularly excited about the Uniting Energy Support Program, which both Kenny and Matt will talk about. But because not only it's a fantastic program, but also because it's now being run across New South Wales, Queensland and Victoria with the support of Energy Charter signatories. This is a 12-month commitment, but we have our fingers firmly crossed that this will continue into the future. I might stop there because I don't want to steal anybody else's thunder, but suffice to say, we're very excited, and we're really excited to have all of you on the call today to learn more about this Uniting Energy Support Program. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, Sabine, and we'll hand straight over to Kenny.
Fantastic, Wendy. And Wendy, just as the slides are coming up there, can I also just take the opportunity to thank CUCOS for organising today's webinar. It's really great to see that our partnerships and engagements with each other provide opportunities to get information out and have discussions with representatives of customers in our local communities. And before I start as well, I'd also like to acknowledge the sentiment of Sabine and Wendy, and also acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands on which we are all meeting today. I am going to run through, and as Sabine mentioned, I am going to run through some slides which do provide some insights to the COVID-19 consumer research that was undertaken. I should say people don't need to sit there with their pen writing down the information, because I believe that we will send a link to the report itself out post this webinar. But to start off, if I can quickly just remind people, Energy Queensland is covers obviously the state of Queensland. We're a government-owned organisation, and we consist of the two distribution networks, Energex and Ergon Energy Network. We also importantly have our Ergon Retail, which is our retailer and primarily serving customers in regional Queensland, and our energy services company, Eureka. And certainly a lot of the work that we've done, particularly in relation to COVID, has involved particularly our network and more so our retail business as well. The next slide, please. I will now just go into, and maybe the next slide, thank you, go into some of the highlights from the research that's been referred to earlier. I think at the beginning of I should say at the start that the beginning of the COVID pandemic, one of the things as an organisation we took seriously with other energy charter signatories and others within the industry through discussions we were having was how can we best try to get and obtain insights into the impacts that COVID may be having on our customers. Again, this was really driven by the need to have some real data to help drive decisions in the business as to how we might be able to respond and support our customers. The research itself actually did commence in October, November 2020, which was the first survey wave, and concluded in July and August of this year. So there was nearly 12 months of data collected, but certainly 4 survey waves. And importantly, there was around about 3,000 customers participated in each survey wave. And as we move on to the next slide, we'll be able to see some of the demographics relating to people who participated in the research. It was also really important that we did get a good representation across Australia from people in various different circumstances. And what you can see on the slide at the moment, particularly from our Queensland audience today, is that just over a fifth of the respondents to the survey were from Queensland, and there was representation in the survey of 4% of those customers being from regional Queensland as well. And as I say, you can look at some of the employment, unemployment statistics and other employment there to sort of show the breadth of participants and backgrounds of people in the survey itself. And I should say, just for clarity, that employment other included, for example, retirees and students, some self-employed people, and others who were stay-at-home parents as well. But as I say, just really important to give people confidence that there was a good statistical representation of backgrounds of people who participated in the survey itself. On to the next slide. So some of the top line results from the report itself as well. And what you can see is actually the responses to the survey undertaken in July and August. So really, whilst the survey was undertaken, we had a 3-month focus. So we're really looking at that April to June period in terms of how people were affected by COVID during that period. And what we can see on the screen at the moment is some of the responses in terms of how people were affected in terms of their income and hours worked. What we did see, unfortunately, was in the last survey wave was that right across Australia, we did see an increase in the number of survey participants who highlighted they were experiencing a decrease in their household income, and that they'd either had their hours reduced at work or unfortunately had lost their jobs. And you can see particularly in the middle section on the regional Queensland side, you can see that there was actually an 8% increase between wave 4 of the survey and wave 3 in terms of the number of people saying that they had lost hours or lost their work altogether. I think we need to keep in mind as well that when this survey was conducted, there was parts of Australia and Queensland also had gone through further lockdowns, and I think that that's some of the drivers for why we may have seen some of the increases in those vulnerable circumstances people were finding themselves in. And just to clarify, the last column there relating to job seeker, we did track that over the year in terms of the number of customers receiving job seeker, but it was a question that really fell off towards the end of the survey because the job seeker itself had ended. And on the next slide, We will be able to see some of the information in terms of insights as to the people's perceptions in terms of their well-being and outlook. And I've just really pulled out a few of the stats here. And I should say this is just really a regional Queensland snapshot. I just thought in the interests of time today, we weren't able to go through the full survey results itself. But so I just really am focusing on regional Queensland in the responses and the information that you can see on the slide in front of you today. We do see from that again, in terms of response to financial stress, we did have, and if you were to take those three boxes that are highlighted there, that's 48% of regional Queenslanders who participated in the survey were highlighting back in August that they were experiencing some level of financial stress. We can also see further down that 52% were reporting varying degrees of concerns about being able to pay their household bills. And again, further down the slide, we can actually see, and very concerningly, that over a third, so 36% of those survey participants from regional Queensland highlighted that they were going without essentials like energy, food and medicine in order to afford their household bills. And again, that's obviously very concerning. The one thing I did want to highlight, though, was that we did see quite a positive response in terms of those regional Queenslanders. I think if we were to look at the three statistics pulled together, there 70% of regional Queensland participants highlighting that they did have trust in their energy provider. And for most of them, that would be Ergon Energy Retail. And look, we were quite pleased to see that result as well. And I think it's maybe testimony to a lot of the work that Ergon Retail did during the pandemic and continues to do in supporting customers who may find themselves in vulnerable circumstances. And indeed, I do know that our credit triage team throughout the pandemic and this continued today certainly make a lot of effort in trying to identify at high risk customers and do outward bound calls to them as part of, I suppose, a preventative approach, whereby we can have as early dialogue and identify customers as early as possible to ensure that they're actually accessing all the rebates or concessions that may be available to them, and also make them aware of the payment plans that we may be able to, and hardship support programs that we have that may be of use and assistance to them. And actually on that point on hardship, if we move on to the next slide, we will see that there was actually an increase in customers, again across Australia, highlighting that they were accessing hardship support programs. And whilst if we were to look at the Queensland figures, we'd see there wasn't really much movement in terms of the whole of Queensland. Again, concerningly, in regional Queensland, we did see an increase of 7% of people who between waves 3 and 4 in the survey identified that they were receiving some kind of hardship support. Whilst I say concerningly, I think we should also take comfort in there that I think that a lot of the work that organisations like yourself will have done on the ground in working with people and encouraging them to contact their retailers probably had a lot to do with the fact that people then felt comfortable in contacting ourselves and we were able to ensure they were receiving the support they need. So at one level concerning, but at the same time a positive in terms of people who were needing support actually being able to access that support. And moving on to the next slide. One of the things that we did from the research as well, and I've always said, and Sabine will know this is a passion of mine, is there's lots of research done, but it always comes down to, well, what next? What do we do with the findings? And certainly from Energy Queensland's perspective, we looked at the results and the data from the research and what we were hearing from organisations, many of whom I'm sure are represented online in the webinar today, about what other things we might be able to do to better support our customers and communities at the grassroots level. Through some of that work, we did actually reassign some of our community investment programme and entered into a partnership with the Indigenous Consumer Assistance Network to fund several scholarships for financial counsellors in the regions. And that was really to provide funding for people to be trained as financial counsellors, because part of the work and discussions we'd had with our stakeholders and community groups in the regions was that there was a real lack of financial counsellor support and being able to advise people and guide them through the sort of, I suppose, myriad of information that they might need to take into account in order to seek help. So we directed with Powerlink Queensland as well resources to fund a programme with ICANN, and that programme is obviously ongoing as those financial counsellors are going through their studies and training. We also, on the back of the work that energy that's been mentioned in terms of the energy charter and the collaboration in some of the Better Together initiatives, we also came across obviously the good work that Uniting has been doing in other states, and together we, Energy Queensland, together with Powerlink and also CS Energy, entered into discussions with Uniting to look at how could we potentially adapt that programme for Queensland. And the programme that Matt will talk us through in a minute is what we've come up with. But we think it's going to be another fantastic opportunity to be able to support customers and communities at the grassroots level, and importantly, work with local community groups to identify people who need support and ensure that they get the support required going forward. So that's really the end of my presentation, and as I say, the link to the COVID-19 research report itself will be circulated post the webinar. But I might just hand back to Wendy.
Thank you so much, Kenny. And so it's really great to just have this, I guess, shared insight into how a collaboration to understand what was going on and to gather together data and to gather together information over time has then been utilised for decision making and actions, which is, you know, exactly what we do want to see when we bring together evidence and data, and that it's happened collaboratively across the supply chain is, I think, really noteworthy. So on that note, now I will pass to Matt from Uniting to give us that detailed understanding of what the program is that has received this funding and how we can access it in Queensland to support the clients that we're working with.
Thanks, Wendy, and thanks to CUCOS for organising this, and also for the Energy Charter Group and Kenny from Energy Queensland. We're super excited about being able to deliver some support up Queensland way. So yeah, we're really pumped about that. So and also just want to acknowledge the traditional owners on the lands on which I'm coming from, which is the Wurundjeri people down in the Kulin Nation in Victoria, and pay my respects to elders past and present as well. So yeah, I just wanted to, if we're going to go to the next slide, just want to sort of give a quick overview of who we are, like who Uniting is. We're a community organisation that's based in Victoria, but we've got like connections with, we've got some staff that also deliver support in Sydney as well as down on the Gold Coast. So we've got a couple of teams that are located down there. I noticed one of them's on the line at the moment. So good to see you here, Zig. And they do some great work in southeast Queensland. So we've never really had an opportunity to work in the regions of Queensland in Ergon's area. So that's a really exciting moment for us as well to be part of this. So and we've been delivering energy support across those states. Plus through COVID, we worked down in Tasmania and did a little bit of support through Northern Territory as well. And yeah, we've been delivering this work for over 20 years. So yeah, we're very experienced at this stuff, but this program is an opportunity for us to work a bit more closely with community organisations up in Queensland and make sure that we can help you to support your clients as well. So if we go to the next slide, thank you. Now, like I mentioned, Kenny mentioned, this is a really exciting thing for us because we've never worked with a transmission company before or energy generator. We've definitely worked with energy distributors, and we work a lot with energy retailers. So we're well versed in that area. But this opportunity is really exciting because, like Sabine mentioned, it's across the whole supply chain. So you know, we don't expect transmission companies or generators to get into this space, but we're very interested in how they've like taken this forward and been really excited about it as well. So hopefully this will encourage more businesses as well to see that there's a benefit to supporting customers within the areas they work in, but also the communities that they serve as well. So this program itself, we've got up to 160 households that we can support over the next 7-8 months, so till June 30 next year. It's not a hard and fast date, but it's something we want to try and work towards. And we want to see that there's a really big benefit to this so that we can hopefully get it extended from there, but also to give us an opportunity to look into what might suit Queensland better for the regional areas or for Southeast Queensland, and in delivering and developing new programs over the next 7 months as well. So whether that's from ourselves or whether in partnership with other community agencies in the area too. So yeah, we're very keen to start analysing that as well as we go along. Just the next slide, please. So what can we do when we do this support program? So there's a range of supports that we give out to all of our clients. So one of the big things is energy efficiency advice, and that's mainly around behaviour change techniques that they can implement within the house to help reduce their energy consumption without having to outlay a whole bunch of money on retrofits, which is not really what our focus is, because the majority of our clients are they're on fixed incomes or they're on very low income, so they don't have a lot of disposable income. So we look at things that they can transfer across the different properties as well. So making sure they get the most out of the appliances that they have without it costing them too much money. We're really keen to build their capability and capacity to look after themselves into the future. So we help support them around discussions with their energy provider on setting up affordable payment plans and understanding their rights and their rights around energy as well. Making sure that we check concessions and getting them any supports that they might need for reducing debt that they've got on their account. So the HEAS program up in Queensland is really important for us to make sure that they get that if they're eligible. So we'll also, even though we don't fill out the form for them, we'll actually step them through it if they need support on that as well, just to make sure that they do that correctly. One of the big things for us is making sure that anyone who we think needs to be on a hardship program gets access to a hardship program. So we'll be chatting directly with Kenny's team to if we highlight people that need to be put onto those programs with in regional Queensland. But in Southeast Queensland, we definitely talk to all of the retailers that work down that way to make sure that people are supported properly through those programs as well. In Southeast Queensland as well, if people don't have any debt on their bills, then we'll try and look for a better energy deal for them down that way. But the majority of people who we see always have a debt, so it's not something we take up a lot of. But we'll also make sure that they get the best deal with their current retailer too. Advocacy support, so we'll just if we need to go to EWOC for any issues, then we'll support them on that as well. And we'll also refer to other programs too. So if someone needs some financial counselling advice for banking matters or other issues that they might have, we'll pass them on for that. If they need emergency relief support, then we'll look for some programs in their local area. Family violence, whatever support we think they might need is we'll make sure they get that referral as well. Just onto the next slide, please. How we do it. So it's just an over the phone consultation. It's one-on-one. So we it might be that we spend a couple of hours on the phone with that person over one session, or it might be that we split it in half and do a couple of sessions over a couple of weeks, just to give them a little bit of time, because some people can't, they can't spend 2 hours on the phone. So yeah, we want to make sure that they're getting all the support they need. It's completely free. We don't charge anything to any of the householders that come through to us, or any of the organisations that refer through to us. So that's not our focus. We don't have any eligibility either. So if someone just comes to us saying that they need help, we'll help them. So we don't want to make too many barriers for people to get access to the support we provide. It's open to all community organisations across Queensland. We have got a particular focus in some areas, which I'll point out in a little while. But if you've got clients that need help, please refer them through, so we'll be able to support them. And people can contact us directly as well. So if they notice a flyer somewhere at a community organisation that's happy to put those up, then they can give us a call without having to go through a support person if they're capable of doing that. And next slide, thank you. Like I mentioned, there's a whole bunch of other referrals that we'll we'll pass people on to, or other programs we'll pass people on to. So it is a bit more of a wraparound program, so it's not solely just focused on energy advice. So if anyone, our team, notice anything that they think someone might get more of a benefit from someone else, then we'll definitely refer them through. Next slide, thanks. So referrals, probably the main thing everyone wants to know about here. It's really simple. So we've got two ways to contact us. You can either call directly through to our 1-800 number, which will go through to one of the team directly. They can have a conversation with either yourself or the householder, the participant, and we can either book them in for an appointment there, or we can start to do some of the support processes at that point in time. So especially for people who are about to get disconnected, that's a good option for people. If they can give us a call, we can get straight onto the retailer, have a conference call and make sure that that's all sorted first, and then book them in for an appointment later on to do some of the extra supports that take a bit longer. Otherwise, you can email through referrals through to our email inbox, and like Kenny mentioned before, you'll get all these slides so that you've got all this information there, so you don't need to write it down. So you can warm transfer the client through. You can give them our details to call, whatever's the most appropriate for your needs. All we really need is a name and contact number if you are referring someone through as an email, or even if you're calling us to let us know. But anything else you can let us know would be great, like if it's a family violence issue, so that we can be aware of that before we call, or if there's specific issues that they need support on, like I mentioned, if someone's about to get disconnected. And if you've got any energy bills, that would be amazing, but it's not essential. So through the Ergon area, we'll be working closely with Kenny's team. They'll hopefully be able to give us some billing data on that to help us before we have that conversation with the client. But in Southeast Queensland, we can follow that with the retailers directly if we need to. And the next slide, thank you. Now, this is a snapshot of some of the issues that our clients face, and this is across all of our programs that run through Southeast Queensland, New South Wales, and Victoria. So, unsurprisingly, like 90% of the people that come to us can't afford to pay their electricity or gas bills on time, or 98%. So, that's what our program is. So it's not surprising to see that number so high. But the big thing for us is that people are going without food to pay their bills. So 50% of people are skipping meals to make sure that they keep their electricity and gas supplies connected. Nearly half of people are struggling to pay their rent and mortgage on time to do the same thing. So lots of people, especially through CALD communities that we work with, they share a lot of money to try and keep on top of the bills. So 70% of people are asking for help from family and friends, which is a huge number. And the heating one's probably more of a southern sort of state issue, but down here, like over 62% of people are going without heating just because they're so concerned about how much it's going to cost them, and that they know that from the previous experiences, the winters before, that they've not been able to pay those bills, so they just switch it off, and it's a big health issue for people down south. So we're really interested to see what data we collect through this program up in Queensland to see whether that flips on its head for the cooling periods for summer. And that's obviously going to be an issue for people's health as well. So most people that we see, or just about everybody we see come to us, has already gone to another community organisation to get support in one way or another, whether it's emergency relief or financial counselling or a whole range of other programs that they might need support on. And half of people who have a credit card can't pay it on time as well. So you can see there's a really big issue here with people not being able to afford their bills, but going with a whole bunch of other essentials to make sure that they keep that essential service going as well. Next slide, thanks. And what we sort of deliver through our programs, everyone we come that we support, like they get a better understanding of their energy use and how what they do impacts on their future bills. The majority of people put in the energy efficiency advice that we discuss within the first 3 months, and over half of them see a decrease in their bills after we've seen them 3 months later. So we're still looking at data for what that looks like, further than 3 months. But we've had some research done over the last couple of years that shows that when we see someone, on average, they save around $350 in that first 12-month period after the initial appointment. We refer on to over 2 to 3 supports for most people, and we definitely get concession savings. This is probably a bit more skewed towards New South Wales and Victoria because there's different concessions down that way. But yeah, around $120 savings per year for people who have not had concessions applied appropriately, so that when we get them added on, and in Victoria we can get them backdated, so that can sometimes be a really big saving for people. And the big thing for us is we really want people to understand that, like, the first port of call should always be their retailer, and hopefully the retailer will be able to support them where they need it, and with our advice, they know their rights, so then they can ask for the right things, even though they shouldn't need to do that. The retailers should definitely be able to do that themselves. But around 50% of our people have felt confident enough to make that first call after we've seen them within the first 3 months. So that's a really important thing for us to be working on with people as well. And over a third of the people we see, we get put onto hardship programs, which wouldn't have been put onto hardship programs without that advocacy support as well. So this is a bit of a snapshot of some of the outcomes that we can deliver for clients. So please make sure that if you've got people who are coming in who are really struggling with their bills. We know a lot of people work in this space, and we're not trying to take over that work. What we want to do is supplement and support the work that you already do, and give you a bit more time to see more people for the same sort of issues. So yeah, please let us know if there's anyone that we can support you with, and we're more than happy to do that. And I think that's it. The next slide is just going to be my name, I think. So yeah, there you go. So thanks everyone for listening. But yeah, we're really excited about this opportunity, and hopefully we'll be able to get some really good support out there into the community, because we know that over the last 18-12 months to 2 years, it's been a really difficult time for a lot of people. So yeah, we're really keen to get up into Queensland and help out. Thanks, Wendy. I'll pass back on to you.
Thanks so much, Matt. And just it's really fascinating to see those figures that you've been collecting, and I guess refining your program around, and just to see that kind of in numbers is really compelling. And I was just reflecting, because CUCOS has done its own sets of analysis on the COVID-19 data sets that were put together through that Energy Charter project, and on this idea of confidence contacting your retailer, which is something that we've known a lot of people really lack confidence to contact their retailer, or at the point when they do contact their retailer, they perhaps lack confidence and that they're not certain of what their rights are, is a really big issue. And some of the data that we looked at from that COVID-19 data set was that of the people who said that they may still need supports in the future, 29% of those who were job seeker recipients weren't confident at all to access supports, and none of that cohort were very confident to access. And in the case of women, young adults, and those working casual or part-time, over 20% of that group that who said that they may need support were also not confident at all to access supports. So it's one of a variety of really significant issues that we need to keep working on and supporting with in all of our different roles across the supply chain and the community sector. So we have time. We've done extremely well, and we've stuck exactly to our agenda, which is fabulous, which means that we have time for some questions. And I'm going to start with a couple of questions that have been put in the Q&A, and then a couple more that were sent through in advance of the webinar. So the first question from Diana, thanks Diana, I would say is for you, Matt, which is just wanting to understand how interpreting services are part of your program, or how that would work for people who need support with a different language.
Yeah, no, thanks, Wendy. And that's usually something I have in the slides, and I don't know why I deleted that from there. So yeah, we always have interpreting services available for people, so which are free. And yeah, we conference call with the relevant language group interpreter. So yeah, that's really important. That's a really important question, Diana. So thanks for asking that, and apologies that I didn't actually have it in my slide, because yeah, we do it with all our programs.
Great, thanks, Matt. And then the next question is one around information. So can you give us any insight into how many households received help across Australia? So I think this is for you again, Matt, whether there's a breakdown by state or territory. So I think it's just getting that understanding, perhaps based on some of those items that you raised about emphasis on heating and things like that, maybe where the programs have been mostly gathering data, and perhaps speak to how we'll get a more robust picture across regional Queensland going forward as well.
Yeah, so our main programs are in Vic and New South Wales, so, and probably skewed more towards Victoria. And it's over the last 12 months, we've had probably about 3,000 people in our through our Victorian programs, but that's we've had a couple of state-based funded programs there, which were quite large. So that's why it's an unusual thing for us. And Victoria, sorry. New South Wales would be around the 400 to 500 mark last year, and Southeast Queensland would have been around the 100 mark. So it's a smaller, Queensland's been a smaller area for us, but an area that we've been really keen and interested to get more involved in, and that's why these conversations were great with Sabine and the team and the teams at Energy Charter, and also with the businesses up in Queensland as well, who are really excited about getting some support out there as well. So as you can see, like, it was around 100 last year, and we've got 160 just from this one program this year. So we'll still have the same program we run normally in Queensland, which will sit around that 80 to 100. So yeah, we've got a good opportunity here to get some really good numbers through there, to get some better data as well. But more importantly, to get the support out there is what we're more interested in, not the data gathering.
Yeah, that's it. And now I have Rose has a raised hand. Hello, Rose.
Awesome.
We're just going to unmute you and let you ask your question.
Connected to mobile device.
So Rose, you should be able to ask your question now. No? Okay.
Cool.
No, okay.
Wendy, I think Rose is going to, she said she'll pop it into the chat, and just while she's doing that, I saw, just building on what Matt was saying as well, I have actually just popped for Ergon retail customers the telephone number for Ergon retail in the chat as well, and also the number for our interpreter service as well, should people need to access that service and contacting us.
Great, thanks, Kenny. Okay, so we'll wait to receive that question through from Rose, and then what I'll move to the other couple of questions that came through in advance of the event. So Kenny, you touched on this a little bit, but just to directly answer, we have a question which is, what kind of front-end processes are in place to monitor vulnerability to essentially prevent families incurring these large energy debts that they will then struggle to pay? And thanks to Susan for this question.
Yeah, and thanks, Susan. Really good question. And I should say as well, as an organisation, we're obviously very committed to working with community groups on the ground. So we do a lot of community outreach work, working with organisations in local communities, and are able to identify some customers who may be in vulnerable circumstances through that work itself as well. Additionally, though, we always strive to try and identify customers that may be at risk, and I certainly know that our hardship support team in Ergon Retail are very proactive in making outward calls to try and contact customers that, from the billing etc. we see and the payments etc. the payments we see coming through, as to whether customers may need some support. So we'll often concentrate on trying to do some of that outreach work.
Disconnected.
In direct contact with those customers as well to talk.
Great, thanks, Kenny. Okay, so I might bring Sabine in for the next question, and also invite Matt and Kenny to speak to it as well. Sabine, it's really fantastic to get an understanding of how organisations who are signatories to the Charter across the supply chain in Queensland and outside of Queensland have been progressively, collaborating and working together to understand how across the supply chain improvements can be made around these issues of affordability and vulnerability. And I guess, I'd really love to hear your thoughts on the potential for further collaboration between the community service sector and this area of work with the Charter, and how that could look in the future, and maybe what role Uniting's program could play in facilitating a deeper collaboration.
Thanks, Wendy, for the question. Look, I think this is all about partnerships, and certainly in the discussions that we had, both at an industry working group level, but also at a CEO council level, there was a real acknowledgement that, often it's not the businesses themselves that are best placed to provide the support, and the Uniting program is a really great example, one of many, I might add, because I'm sure there's plenty of people on this call today that are also delivering incredible programs, where really what we need to be doing is partnering with these organisations. So we're excited about this $1.5 million, partly because it's a toe in the water for some businesses that just haven't played in this space before. We're excited that they've partnered with Uniting and some other organisations in other jurisdictions so that they can get a taste of what that looks like. And we've certainly had conversations with Matt and others about the importance of cultural change that this can bring to the businesses. So sharing, of course, privacy being respected, back into the businesses, the kind of changes that this can make for real life humans on the ground is going to be part of the culture change that we need to see, so that organisations up and down the supply chain feel much more confident, comfortable and inspired, frankly, to enter into these kind of partnership arrangements for the future, so we can ensure that they're sustainable partnerships, not just 12-month partnerships, and that's certainly what we're aiming for here.
Thank you. I'm not sure if there were any other comments on this one.
Yeah, I think the thing that's impressed me through the conversations we've had through the, Sabine's energy charter and the businesses is that there is a real want to do things differently, but also the acknowledgement that they're on a journey. So this is the first start to collaboration that a lot of these businesses have done, not Kenny's, but some of the other transmission companies and things like that across the sector. So they're really keen to hear more from community organisations, not just obviously from us. So we're keen to also work closely with the community sector up in Queensland to find out what's going to work best up there, long term. And whether it's, there's a whole suite of different programs that could be developed and run that are going to give great outcomes for householders that really need that support. And whether that's, something that's like ours, but also a whole bunch of other different supports as well that sort of complement that as well. So, I think that to look at this as at the start of obviously a long journey, because it's, it's not going to be fixed overnight. And I think, this is for me, the exciting part was just hearing the enthusiasm from the businesses about how they want to get involved in supporting communities as well. So definitely that's been great from my end.
And Wendy, if I could just add that as well, in terms of the Energy Charter and the collaboration and the sharing of experiences, the Energy Charter has been a fantastic vehicle for businesses in the energy sector across Australia to come together to share our learnings, which I think at one level has made us a bit more agile, because we've been able to also look at, well, what works and what doesn't work, and therefore focus effort based on that sharing of that knowledge, etc., into programs that we will hopefully see maximum results from as well. So that collaboration at the industry level, and that's, the Uniting program came from some of that collaboration. It's just an example of where it's important the energy sector businesses talk and share insights together to ensure we don't waste time and effort on things, and we try and maximize the support that we can give people.
Great, thank you. So we are 5 minutes out, and we now have a good solid bank of questions. And they're all good questions. So let's see if we can get to them all. So thanks, Rose, for your questions. I will just read that out for everyone. So, how will Uniting link in with community orgs on the ground? Noting that this is the best way, of course, to get referrals for customers in need of help. And also, just as a note, is it possible for Uniting to consider actually a deeper level of support on assisting clients with the HIAS forms and application process, in recognition that it's quite difficult and complex to fill in?
Yeah, so that I'll do the HIAS one first, so because it's probably the quickest. We do that already. Like, we will support the client to fill that out. So we'll actually give them a hand. Zig is, like you've mentioned, is really good at what he does. So he spends a lot of time making sure that that's filled out correctly before it gets sent off. So definitely take your point on that, Rose. It's really important for a lot of cohorts that don't have the literacy level to fill out any form, let alone a government form. So and about connecting with community orgs, it's completely take your point on that. It's the best way for us to get referrals, and that's what we do with all of our programs that we run. That's how we want to engage with the community, because the community sector know their clients the best. And our team do a lot of work doing that groundwork to get out to our community orgs and promote what we do and let them know about the referral pathways, and to be a collaborative sort of approach with that. So yeah, that'll be how we'll be getting a lot of support through this program, as with the help of community organisations on the ground, for sure.
Great, thank you. And then to dive straight into another really practical question from Teresa. So working within a hardship program, we complete over the phone household energy usage audits with our customers as an additional support and education. Given that energy efficiency is something customers are unaware of, Matt, do you think with our partnership in place, it would be possible that we refer our customers to your organisation when they're accepted onto our hardship program? We currently have over 6,500 customers managed on our program.
I assume
a good opportunity.
Yeah, that's right. I assume Teresa's from Ergon. If she's not there, we might have to have a chat. But yeah, that's definitely how the program, the partnership with Kenny's team is going to work. That they'll refer clients through to us that they think are appropriate for the program. But we'll also be referring clients back into their program to where we pick up from other community organisations. So yeah, it'll sort of be a bit of a both ways approach, I guess. But yeah, we definitely do have an opportunity for the Ergon team to pass through customers through to us as well.
Amazing. Thank you. Okay, we've got 1 minute left. So we had a couple of questions unanswered, which we will be able to address in our post-event wrap-up email. So Ian and Rose, your second questions we'll respond to in that email. But for now, I would just really like to take the opportunity to thank everyone who joined the webinar today, and specifically to our speakers, Sabine, Kenny and Matt, for sharing your insights and perspectives and taking us through this collaborative initiative and outcome, and talking about the potential for this into the future as well. So thanks so much everyone for joining. We'll be sending out a recording link and supporting materials after this event. If you have any questions or need to contact anyone that has been speaking today, you can reach out to me, or we'll provide contact details in that post-event wrap-up email. and just wish everyone a really fantastic rest of your day. So thanks very much.